Okay, so a lawyer from Vancouver named Paul Doroshenko had a Florida trip booked, and his wife and children, they had a planned trip to Disneyland and instead went to Europe. I believe I did a previous report that featured Paul's boycott, but this one has a little bit more details in terms of what he's boycotting and why. For me personally, I actually like hearing these stories instead of just seeing stats. It's more personal. And just like us, Paul is also insulted by the actions of the United States. But you know what else is also insulting? This headline right here, which comes from a media outlet in the North Country of New York. You know, the same county that says that no other border state across the entire border cares as much about Canada as they do. The same region that tried to educate Canadians on what we did for the United States. Like, seriously, thanks for the history lesson. But this just proves that any tourism official or chamber of commerce that says that we have a special relationship with Canada, well, you don't control all of your citizens and what they think. Because whoever wrote this article definitely doesn't understand why Canada is not coming to your country. So we're going to get into all of this in this video, and I'm going to start off with the article that's titled, "It's Insulting: Why Canadians Are Avoiding the US." I'll read this one out in full for anyone who's just listening or for the visually impaired. The last time Paul Doroshenko was in the United States for longer than a day was more than 9 years ago. The Vancouverite has no plans to return anytime soon. The lawyer was in Arizona in 2017 for a trade conference that coincided with President Taco Tuesday's first inauguration. He saw the swearing in on television in the hallway. Since Taco Tuesday's second inauguration, Doroshenko said that he felt concerned by the administration's stance on diversity, equity and inclusion, detainments, and rhetoric about the US taking over Greenland and Canada. Now, Greenland is not in the clear. Marco Rubio said a few days ago that Greenland is part of Denmark, for now. You see, it's little jabs like this from the US administration that really pisses off the entire world. But then again, you can always count on these guys to say something stupid. But for everyone saying that, oh, all of these comments are just jokes, this is not a joke. I mean, even if the US administration doesn't pull through on it, there are some things that you just don't say. Back to Paul's story. All of these things come to play, and it is, in fact, political. But we also hear Canadians being detained, Canadians locked up in immigration detention, Canadians facing Americans talking about 51st state, he said. It's insulting and offensive, and not the way you treat your neighbor or business partner. He said he canceled all of his US vacations until there's a significant shift. Canadians were once the US largest group of international travelers, but recent data shows a shift, as some have turned away from the US based on values and a weakening Canadian dollar. Screw off with that Canadian dollar shit. By the way, this is a US-based article, so no surprise there. According to Stats Canada, 1.1 million Canadians returned from the US in February 2026, a drop of about 13.25% from 1.41 million in February 2024. A Toronto University study published in May analyzed cell phone data, comparing the time frame from April 1st, 2024 to March 31st, 2025, to the period from April 1st, 2025 to March 31st, 2026. It found a median 42% decline in Canadian visits to the US. Many travelers from the Great North chose other destinations that feel more aligned with, welcome to, and even safer in. Doroshenko traded a trip to Florida for a trip to Dominican Republic, and his wife and children canceled a visit to Disneyland and went to Europe. He skipped conferences and trade shows in the US, but will attend a gathering in Mexico. He explored more of his home, British Columbia, than he has in the past decade. Now, this is just one person's story, but I know for a fact that the GTL community, hundreds of you, if not thousands of you, have redirected your vacations from the US to somewhere else. I've done videos in the past where I review the comments from the community, and some members have said that, hey, we decided to go to somewhere else instead, and we would have spent like $20,000 in the United States. Then you have others saying that they used to go to the United States on an annual basis, and from now on decided to go to Europe instead. But this right here actually concerns me more, especially for our international viewers, or anybody that requires an ESTA to go to the United States. If you haven't heard about this yet, a Scotland fan was ready to go to the World Cup, had his ESTA approved like months ago, and a few days before he was ready to fly out, his ESTA status changed to rejected or like not admissible. What was the reason? Who knows? Nobody knows why. But the biggest problem I see is that this guy already paid for his flight, his hotel, all of the expenses that he needs to pay for to go to the United States. He was ready to go, and then a few days before, he got rejected. Is he going to get his money back for that? Probably not. Now, put aside that he's going for the World Cup. I'm just talking about any European visitor or any visitor that requires an ESTA wanting to go to the United States. Would you feel comfortable knowing that this guy got his ESTA revoked like days before he was supposed to leave? This should be a big warning for anyone requiring an ESTA to go to the United States, that even if it says approved, until you're on that plane, nothing is guaranteed. Well, I should correct myself. Even if you're on that plane and you do land in the United States, you could still get rejected and get deported. Back to the article. This summer, more Canadians will lean into domestic travel, where shorter, closer trips give them more bang for their buck, according to Expedia's Summer Travel Outlook. The most popular domestic destination for Canadians this summer are Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal, based on the platform's lodging searches from January 5th to April 5th. For travel between June 1st and August 31st, Europe, Paris, London, and Rome are the top international destinations. U.S. Travel Association data shows overall foreign nationals' visits to the U.S. dropped by 5.5% last year, driven mainly by fewer Canadians. That amounted to 2.4% loss in inbound travel spending revenue. I think it's more than that. Canadian travelers spend 3 times as much on their US trips as Americans do. Now remember this last sentence for the next article I talk about. Now, not all Canadians are boycotting, and of course, this article being a US based media company, they have to show some Canadians that are still going. Let me read this out. Past the divide. Some Canadians say they still feel welcome in the US, and human connection matters more. Sharon Wickham, who lives in Alberta, continues to visit the US. She mainly comes to cowboy-mounted shooting competitions with her horses and says she enjoys meeting like-minded people. As long as her paperwork is in order, she said, she hasn't had trouble at the border. Well, this is another case of like, it has never happened to me, so everything must be fine. My guess, Sharon probably has the right skin color, and like she says, she likes meeting like-minded people. Back to the articles. Those boycotting travel to the US, I believe they are missing out, she said. What? Okay, Sharon, what exactly are you missing out on? Like, what's so great about the United States that we're losing the opportunity to experience right now? It sounds to me like you belong in the United States, so you should probably just move there. Now, unfortunately, Sharon's not the only one. Let me read this next one. Winnipeg-based Carla Foley also still sojourns to the US, mainly as a snowbird. She recently spent 3 weeks in Arizona and heads to New York in June. Taco Tuesday's rhetoric about Canada's sovereignty and the trade war felt disheartening, she said, but that was outweighed by pride for her country. We are very strong, and Canada to me will always be Canada. The small business owner encourages Canadians to consider who is affected by the boycotts. You're not hurting Taco Tuesday, and you're not hurting people who have billions of dollars. You're hurting those little small businesses that relied on you, coming down every year to support your little town or whatever that is. Where the hell have we heard that before?
And so when people stop coming to Maine, particularly from Canada, from the maritime provinces, they're not hurting Donald Trump. They're not hurting the powers that be in Washington. They're hurting their friends here in Maine, whose businesses thrive and depend on Canadian traffic. And that is disappointing. You're not sending a message to Washington, and you're only hurting your friends and potentially family members who live and work in Maine.
Okay, is this Carla Foley person a fake person and is just Janet Mills in disguise? We know the US media has used US citizens, portraying them as Canadians. Like that interview in Las Vegas where they used a guy from Texas and said he was from Toronto. So yeah, this quote from Carla Foley seems a little bit suspicious. But let's dig into this a little bit more, what Carla Foley said, that we're hurting the small businesses and not the billionaires in Taco Tuesday. Well, there's a reason why Taco Tuesday is in the office. 77 million of them voted for him. Out of the 77 million that ticked the box beside his name, many of them probably own businesses, whether they're small businesses or farms or breweries. What else is there? Mechanic shops, restaurants, border town bars, resorts, bed and breakfast, retail, and even some events and tourism businesses. I'm just going by what I remember on the previous reports I've done. But these people that I just listed out, that voted for Taco Tuesday and have small businesses, I could care less if their business fails. I'm sorry if that sounds mean, but it's my honest truth. And us boycotting is hurting these people that made the decision to vote for Taco Tuesday. Now, unfortunately, it's also hurting the businesses that didn't vote for him. But logically, there's no way for us to separate this. And at the end of the day, the United States is the United States. So that's the first article, and I'm also very suspicious about this Carla Foley person. But that's just me. But remember how I said earlier to keep an eye on that last sentence where Canadians spend more and stay longer than their US counterparts. Well, this next article seems to think that Canadians are avoiding because we're broke. This one's titled, Maybe Canadians Aren't Avoiding Northern New York Because of Taco Tuesday. Maybe they're just broke. Now, I'm not even going to bother reading out this article. I mean, it's just a load of shit. Because it's obvious that it's written by a MAGA Republican who's just trying to cover for Taco Tuesday. Now, this website itself, I don't even think it's an official media outlet, but it's obviously someone who's familiar with the North Country area in New York. But what I actually want to point out is that the North Country Chamber of Commerce, earlier this year, or late last year, they put out this campaign and created a slideshow for Canadians, and I guess it's called We Know Canadians As. And they basically tried to teach us about what we did for the United States. I mean, everything you're seeing on the screen right now, we as Canadians, we already know this. But I have to ask, does this guy who wrote that article, Does he know about this stuff? Does he know how offensive his article actually is? I mean, he's obviously from your area. If you go to the website, all of the articles are within your county. But what really bothers me is that the North Country says that there's long-standing friendships and families and interactions that we have daily with each other, and that no other border state or county has the same relationship with Canada as you do. While at the same time, you got articles like this coming out of your area. I think this article is just a reflection of your voting results in 2024. Because having one of your residents calling us broke, that's not going to help us come back. And that slideshow that you guys made? After seeing this article, it means absolutely nothing to us now. And if you have issues with what I said, maybe you should talk to the owner of this website. Now, there is one more thing I want to talk about, and this article is titled, Travel Trends Canada. Canadians are traveling more as US travel slows and domestic trips rise. Now, I'm not going to read the whole article because there's a lot of stats and data that we've already heard, but they did a poll of 1,583 Canadian residents. And I want to show the results on a question that they asked, why Canadians are pulling back from US travel. This part here says, the decline in US demand is not being driven by one issue alone. It comes from a mix of practical, emotional, and political concerns. Among Canadians who say they are less likely to travel to the US in 2026, 67% cited the political climate and tensions between Canada and the US. 61% cited tariffs and trade tensions. 59% say they no longer feel safe traveling to the US. 48% say they do not feel welcome in the US. And 39% say poor exchange rate or weak Canadian dollar. Now, I don't agree with the last one, but I don't know where these people came from. But we do know for a fact that Canadians are still traveling, and even traveling to Europe, which is going to cost us more than going to the United States. Now, I know a lot of the GTL community, if we filled out this survey, it would be completely different for us. I have a feeling the political climate and tensions would be higher, as well as not feeling safe traveling to the United States. If it was internationally, I think the international viewers would have the no longer feel safe traveling to the US and do not feel welcome as a higher priority. But this is just one poll. I mean, it really depends on who they're polling and where their audience is. I mean, I could do the exact same poll, and the results would be completely different. But I'm pretty sure if I conduct the same poll with the GTL community, political climate, as well as no longer feeling safe, and do not feel welcome would be a lot higher. So there are some commonalities within this poll, and what I would predict with the GTL community. To close off this video, I would like to thank David for sending me this photo of Fort Beauséjour. I know I mispronounced that. I'm sorry. I'll just say Fort Cumberland in New Brunswick. I know you sent this to me a while ago, and I apologize for not double checking your email, but I do really appreciate you sending it over to me and sharing it with us. Okay, everyone, that's all I got for this video. If you found any value in anything I said today, or you want to hear more from a Canadian and international point of view, without the US media bias, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button below. That way you'll be notified of my future videos. And don't forget to hit the bell icon and select all as well. Now, if you want to see more of my videos, check out the ones that are going to show up on your screen shortly. Thanks, everyone. I'll catch you in the next one.